About a month ago, I was trying to deal with being recently single. It wasn't easy. I threw myself into work, deadlines looming over me. To distract myself, I started ordering Ubers to get around the busy city. I thought it would be just me, the drivers, and the road ahead. Little did I know, I would never feel the same about those rides again. One night, I requested my first Uber after a long day. I needed a break from my computer. The driver showed up quickly. He was oddly friendly, chatty even. We started talking, and he told me about urban legends in the city. I thought it was just small talk, but I felt uneasy. He somehow brought up unsolved disappearances. My heart raced. It felt darker than just conversation. I faked a laugh, but it didn't come off right. The next driver had this wild look in his eyes. He was paranoid. He glanced at me before darting his gaze back to the road. I felt cold. He took a longer route to my place, and each turn made me grip the seat tighter. I swear I heard him mutter about people sneaking up behind you. I wanted to shake off the chill, but it stuck to me. With every ride after that, it got stranger. The next driver talked about seeing ghosts in the back seat. Another fretted about a dark figure that haunted the streets. I felt their eyes on me in the rearview mirror, studying me. I didn't know why I kept ordering rides. I thought maybe the next one would be normal. But then came the last one. It was different. This driver barely said a word. I started to fidget, peering out the window. The streets blurred. I felt something was wrong. He turned down unmarked roads into neighborhoods I didn't recognize. My heart pounded. I felt a cold sweat on my back. Suddenly, he turned to me. "You know, they say some passengers never make it home," he said. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. His eyes were wide and serious. Minutes felt like hours. I wanted to scream or jump out, but I was far from anywhere familiar. When I thought the ride would end soon, he asked me, "Why are you so anxious?" I didn't know how to answer. My fear grew thick in my throat. I looked out at the empty street behind us. "Why are you following me?" I whispered. I didn't intend to say it, but there it was. The silence felt heavy. He stared at me, but didn't reply. And in that moment, everything clicked. I was not just a passenger. I was something else to him. Now, after all those rides, I can't shake the feeling that something is still out there, watching me. The drivers, the stories. What if they're still on those unmarked routes? What if I'm still being followed? I don't order Ubers anymore, but every time I see one pass by, I get the urge to look over my shoulder. I never want to feel that way again. I spent the next few days feeling like I was in a horror movie. I avoided Ubers. I kept to well-lit streets and crowded coffee shops, but I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. I started to second-guess every shadow in my apartment. The clink of a neighbor's door sounded like a warning bell. Then one evening, while waiting for the bus, I spotted an Uber parked across the street. The driver was watching me. My heart raced, and I looked away quickly, feeling a rush of dread. It was just a car, but I felt trapped. The back seat of that vehicle haunted me. I didn't want to be marked, to be prey again. I decided to shake it off. Maybe I was overthinking things. So I met a friend for dinner, hoping to unwind. We laughed, reminiscing, and I began to forget the darkness surrounding me. But then, on the way home, I saw that same Uber again. I was certain the driver was the same wild look. I didn't want to believe it. I convinced myself it was a coincidence. Ubers were everywhere. But every time I turned my head, the car seemed closer, like it was following me. I asked my friend to walk me to my subway station. I needed to be somewhere safe. As we walked, I felt like I was in a fog. The city lights were too bright and made everything hazy. I tried to focus, but my mind flashed back to the driver who had made me feel like prey. I almost wished I never left my apartment that night. Just as we reached the station, I looked back. There it was, parked at the curb.
The driver was looking directly at me. I froze. My friend noticed and asked if I was okay. I smiled, tight-lipped, my heart racing. I wanted to run, but a part of me had to know. "Hey, I'm going to take a quick look," I said. I didn't know what I hoped to find. My friend frowned. "Are you sure? It's a bit late." "I'll be fine," I lied, determined to gather my courage. I approached the car slowly. I could see the driver staring at me through the window, that same intense gaze that felt wrong. I swallowed hard and knocked lightly on the glass. The driver's expression didn't change. I felt my breath hitch. I wanted to run, but a part of me had to know. "Can I help you?" he finally asked, his voice calm but laced with something else I couldn't place. "I wasn't following you, I was waiting." And that's when I saw it, a small, tattered flyer on his dashboard. A picture of a missing person stared back at me. The resemblance was uncanny. My stomach dropped. Was this a coincidence? "I know them," I said, my voice trembling. "He knows you do," he replied. The shadows in his eyes deepened. Then everything clicked. This wasn't just about me. I felt trapped again, but this time I needed answers. I stepped back, heart pounding, and suddenly wished I'd never approached. What had I just uncovered? But before I could turn away, he leaned toward me and said, "You need to come with me." The world spun at his words. My legs felt like they were tied to the ground. I glanced back at my friend, who stood a few steps away, confusion etched on her face. The smile faded from my lips as I tried to process the driver's words. "Come with me?" The invitation felt more like a threat, and my instincts screamed at me to run. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm not going anywhere with you." I took a step backward, trying to put distance between us, but he just smiled wider, like he enjoyed my fear. "Look," he said, his tone shifting. "It's serious. There are things you don't know about that picture." His eyes darted between me and my friend. I could feel my heart drumming in my chest. Still unsure whether I should trust him or flee, I felt trapped in that moment. My mind raced through possibilities. What did he mean? What could possibly be serious enough to drag me into this mess? "Why do you have it?" I asked, my voice steadying a bit. "What does it have to do with me?" He leaned back in his seat, considering me. "She's more than just missing," he said, "and you're the key to finding her." "Me?" My confusion deepened. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, the tension boiled over. My friend stepped in, sensing my uncertainty. "I think we should leave," she said firmly. "This isn't right." She grabbed my arm, ready to pull me away. "Wait," I said. "I need to know." I turned back to the driver, locking eyes with him. His expression softened slightly, but the underlying anxiety never vanished. He took a deep breath, then said, "Your face matches the last person who saw her. You need to understand things are more complicated than they seem." My stomach nodded at his words. What did he mean? Panic rushed through me. I had seen footage, articles about missing people, but I never thought I'd connect to something so tragic. Then, suddenly, the headlights of another car swung around the corner, illuminating the Uber. I squinted, and through the glare, I thought I saw something glinting in his hand, a shiny object that looked too much like a knife. "Get back!" I yelled, adrenaline kicking in. I turned to run, pulling my friend with me as we dashed toward the subway entrance. Behind me, I heard the driver shout, "I didn't want it to come to this!" The tone in his voice sent chills down my spine. We reached the entrance just as the tension snapped. I didn't dare look back as we hurried down the steps, my thoughts racing. Who was he? What had I stumbled into? Inside the subway, the air was cooler, but my heart felt like it was on fire. I needed answers, but fear wrapped around me like a noose. As the train approached, I caught my breath, hallucinating the sound of footsteps behind us. Were we in danger, or was I imagining it all? The train doors slid open, and I stepped in, pulling my friend with me. I glanced around, half expecting the driver to appear at any moment, but all I could see were tired faces, unaware of the chaos that churned just beneath the surface. That's when I noticed it, a figure at the end of the platform, watching.
Waiting. I froze for a moment, studying the figure. It was wearing a dark hoodie, the hood pulled low over its face. A flicker of recognition hit me, but I couldn't place it. My pulse quickened again, and I instinctively pulled my friend close to me. "Do you see that?" I whispered, trying not to attract attention. She followed my gaze and nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "We should get out of here," she urged. "This whole night feels wrong." I wanted her to be right, but curiosity gnawed at me. Who was that person? Were they involved in this mystery? The train jolted as it departed, and the figure slipped into the shadows. I spotted something shiny in its hand, and my heart sank. Another knife? Without thinking, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I hit record, nervous but determined. I needed proof of what was happening. As the video rolled, my arm shook slightly, and I prayed the figure couldn't see me through the crowded seats. "Let's just sit down," my friend suggested, her voice trembling. She was looking around, as uneasy as I felt. We found a spot at the far end of the car, trying to play it cool, but I could hardly focus on anything else. "Maybe we should switch trains," I said quietly, feeling the itch of panic creeping in. "Get off at the next stop." "That's a good idea," she agreed, glancing over her shoulder. "But what if they follow us?" I shook my head, forcing myself to relax. "We'll figure it out. We just need to keep to ourselves for now." As the train whizzed through the dark tunnel, I turned back to the front, hoping to forget about the figure. My heart sank when I saw a reflection in the glass panel ahead. The driver from earlier. He was standing at the track, watching the train. I gasped, turning my head as if that would make him disappear. My friend's face paled as she caught sight of him too. What is he doing? Is he following us? He can't get on the train, right? I tried to convince myself, but part of me feared we hadn't escaped after all. The train came to an abrupt stop, jolting me. An announcement crackled over the speaker, and I felt a wave of dread. "Next stop is—" "That's our stop," my friend whispered, panic rising in her voice. I nodded, my thoughts racing. "Okay, we need to move quickly. Just act normal." The doors slid open, and I leapt out, pulling her with me. I glanced back, half expecting to see him stepping through the doors right behind us, but he didn't. Still, the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. We hurried down the platform, searching for a way out. That's when I noticed a small door marked Employee Only. It was slightly ajar, and a flicker of light was coming from inside. "What about in there?" I pointed, hesitating. It seemed both inviting and dangerous. "Are you serious? That could be a trap," my friend grabbed my arm. "I don't know, but it might be our only chance."
Ignoring her hesitation, I pushed through the door and we stepped into the darkness. As soon as we entered, the door creaked shut behind us, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. The narrow hallway was dimly lit, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I glanced at my friend, and for a moment we exchanged a silent agreement. We couldn't go back now. "Stay close," I whispered. We crept forward, our footsteps echoing in the stillness. The air felt charged, thick with a tension I couldn't shake. I fumbled for my phone, using the dim light from the screen to guide us. The hallway led to a small break room cluttered with old furniture and rusted lockers. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead, making everything feel more unsettling. My friend wrung her hands, clearly unnerved. "What if someone finds us here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to tell her not to worry, that we'd be fine, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. My heart raced as I scanned the room, searching for anything that could help us. On a table in the corner, I noticed what looked like a map of the train system, detailed and marked with different routes. It could be useful. "That," I said, motioning toward the table. "Let's check it out." We approached the table cautiously, and I could see my friend's eyes darting around the room, as if waiting for something to jump out at us. I studied the map, my fingers brushing over the inked lines. If we can figure out where we are, maybe we can plot a safer way out. Just then, a noise echoed down the hall, a faint scuffle followed by muffled voices. My blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" I murmured, my throat dry. She nodded, wide-eyed. "We need to hide." Without thinking, we ducked behind a set of lockers just as the door at the end of the hall swung open. 2 figures stepped inside, their voices low and urgent. I couldn't see their faces, but one of them had a distinct limp, echoing a familiar sound from earlier. "Did they see us?" my friend whispered, barely containing her panic. "I don't know," I breathed, pressing myself against the cold metal of the lockers, straining to listen. They moved deeper into the break room, rummaging through the drawers. I could barely make out their conversation. Tension coiled tighter in my chest. This felt wrong, like a trap within a trap. The flickering light above showered us in uneasy shadows. Then everything went dark. The overhead buzz cut out abruptly, and we were engulfed in total silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching our hiding spot. I held my breath, feeling my heart pound in my ears. That's when I saw it, the glint of something metallic just outside the gleaming edge of the locker. A knife. Fear surged through me, and I turned to my friend. "We need to move, now." But as I made my decision, I realized we had another problem. The door was blocked. My mind raced, searching for a solution.
The door wasn't just blocked. It felt like a barrier separating us from whatever awaited in the darkness. I risked a glance through the narrow gap between the lockers, trying to see the figures that had entered. Their silhouettes loomed large, casting long shadows as they rummaged through scattered papers and items on the table. "They're looking for something," my friend whispered, trembling beside me. "Maybe they're just scavengers," I replied, but I knew that wasn't true. Scavengers didn't move with purpose like this. Suddenly, one of them turned, and I caught a glimpse of a rugged face partially illuminated by a cell phone. It looked wild, menacing. I could see the other was busy digging through a backpack, tossing its contents aside with frustration. "If they're here for the map," I murmured, "we can't let them find it." My friend nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" I took a deep breath. We couldn't stay put, but we also couldn't let them know we were nearby. I reached under the locker, finding a loose piece of metal, maybe from the furniture, and held it tightly. "On 3, we make a run for it," I said, trying to mask my own terror. 1, 2, 3. In unison, we bolted from behind the lockers. We dashed across the room, hearts pounding, desperately searching for an escape route. But the hallway seemed even longer now, and the figures had clearly heard us. "Hey, get back here!" one of them shouted, his voice heavy with authority and anger. I glanced back just in time to see the man with the limp pointing toward us. Panic surged, and I turned around, sprinting toward an open doorway that led into another room. We stumbled inside, hearts racing and breathless. The room was darker, the windows boarded up and the air thick with dust. Another flicker of light from my phone revealed scattered crates and old equipment, a storage area for something long abandoned. We were momentarily safe, but I knew it wouldn't last. "Where do we go now?" my friend gasped, looking around wildly. I took a moment to catch my breath. If we can find another exit, we might lose them. I spotted a faint outline of a door at the far end of the room. "Let's try that," she whispered urgently. We crept toward the door. Every creak and groan of the floorboards made my skin crawl. I placed my hand on the knob, but just as I was about to twist it, I heard it, a distinct crunching noise echoing behind us. "They're coming," his friend hissed, her eyes wide with dread. I pushed the door open, but before we could step through, the sound of shouting echoed from the hallway. "They went this way!" My heart raced again. There was no time to think. We had to act fast. We stepped through the door, and just as I turned to pull her with me, my stomach dropped. The hallway wasn't leading us outside. It opened into a dark, narrow staircase spiraling downward. She hesitated. "Are you sure?" I could feel the heat of urgency rising up my chest. "We have no choice."
Come on! Just as we began to descend, voices grew louder behind us. We can't go back now, I thought, racing down the steps. But as I reached the bottom, I heard a chilling realization. The hallway wasn't empty. It was full of something waiting for us. As I stepped off the last stair, the darkness swallowed us whole. I reached for my phone, the screen barely illuminating the cramped pathway ahead. The walls were damp, oozing something that smelled bitter and musty. It felt wrong, like this place hadn't seen light in years. "Did you hear that?" my friend whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. I strained to listen. The faint sound of breathing lingered in the air, mixed with the rustle of something shifting in the shadows. I froze, instinctively squeezing the metal piece in my hand. "I think we need to keep moving," I said, my voice shaky. As we ventured forward, the path curved sharply, and suddenly I spotted a flicker of movement up ahead. My throat tightened. "What if it's them?" "I don't know. We should—" Before she could finish, a low growl echoed down the hall. It was guttural and primal, sending chills shooting down my spine. The light flickered again, and I saw it, a figure crouched in the corner, its eyes shining like coals. I felt my stomach drop. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing her hand and yanking her along. We dashed down the corridor, the shadows chasing us, breath hitching as we desperately searched for another exit. But the narrow hallway stretched on, like a nightmare with no end. We burst into another dimly lit room, which was larger but just as unsettling. Old cages lined the walls, some rusted, others broken. What were they for? Panic clawed at my chest. "Do you see any way out?" my friend asked, glancing nervously. The air was heavy with dust as I moved deeper into the room. My phone's light danced erratically, revealing odd shapes scattered across the floor. Bones, jagged and weathered. I stifled a gasp. "Over here," I called, pointing towards the far wall where a large metal door stood slightly ajar. We rushed toward it, but as we reached the door, a loud bang echoed from behind us. I whirled around, heart racing. The figure from the hallway had followed us. Its movements were quick and erratic, closing the gap too fast. "Quick, in!" I yelled, forcing the door open wider. We squeezed inside just before it lunged, the sound of claws scraping the ground, sending tremors through my entire body. The door swung shut behind us, and for a moment we felt a sense of safety, but it was short-lived. The room we stumbled into was cramped, filled with old machinery that looked untouched for years. The walls were plastered with tattered maps, some covered in strange markings. "What is this place?" my friend breathed, her eyes scanning the walls in confusion. "I don't know, but we need to find a way out." Just then, a harsh clicking noise erupted from somewhere in the room, and I turned. There, in the shadows, I saw a pair of eyes staring back at me. The growl returned, lower this time. That's when I saw it. A creature, hunched over, its skin a sickly gray and mottled. I felt my breath hitch. It was not just a figure, it was a warning. "Get back!" I shouted as the creature moved forward. And I knew then, whatever was down here was not just seeking us, it was hunting. I backed away slowly, my heart thudding in my chest like a drum. The creature stepped closer, its eyes narrowing as it assessed us. It was not just a monster, it felt like it embodied all the horror this place held. My mind raced, struggling to think clearly. "Where do we go?" my friend whispered, fear lacing her voice. I could see her grasping for any semblance of a plan, but I didn't have one. The only thing I knew was that staying still felt like an invitation for whatever that was.
Then, without thinking, I reached for the large metal door behind us, ready to bolt back if the creature lunged. My fingers trembled against the cold steel, but the sound of heavy breathing filled the air, sending a shiver down my spine. "Look for something," I urged her, my voice barely louder than a breath. I took a step nearer to the machinery scattered around the room. Old tools lay haphazardly, and I searched frantically for anything that might help us defend ourselves. The deep growl echoed again, closer this time, and I felt a surge of urgency. I grabbed a rusted pipe, its weight heavy in my hands. It was better than nothing. "If it comes for us," I started, but I couldn't finish. Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket, cutting through the tense silence. It felt like a gunshot in the dark. She fumbled for it, eyes wide with panic. "What do I do?" "Silence it. Turn it off," I hissed. My heart raced again, realizing that the noise wouldn't just alert the creature, it would attract anything else lurking in the shadows. She swiped the screen desperately, finally silencing the phone with a shaky hand. But in that breathless moment, the creature responded to the interruption. Its attention snapped toward us, hunger glinting in its eyes. Back up, I commanded, moving toward the door. I opened it just enough to keep an escape route, knowing that if we had the chance, we needed to be ready to bolt. The creature shifted, crouching low, its posture like a predator sizing up its prey. I thrust the pipe forward, trying to look intimidating, though I felt the exact opposite. "Stay away from us!" I yelled, unsure if it would understand any warning at all. That's when I noticed something on the wall behind it, a jagged outline resembling a panel, oddly placed among the maps. Maybe it was a way out. "Look there!" I pointed, hoping my friend saw what I did. She nodded, her gaze flickering toward the wall, then back to the creature. We had to divide its attention. "I'll distract it."
"You try to get to that panel," I said, unsure how my shaky voice managed to sound urgent. "What if—" "Just do it," I interrupted, stepping firmly between her and the creature. With one swift motion, I flung the pipe towards the creature. It clattered against an old machine, drawing the monster's focus. It lunged at the sound, and I saw my friend darting for the wall. The growl escalated, filling the room as I yelled again, "Now!" I could feel the heat of its breath against my back as I held my ground, praying she could find a way through. Then the door slammed shut with a deafening thud, and I watched her fingers scramble against the panel. It was only then I knew we were not alone. A chorus of voices whispered from the shadows, taunting us, echoing our fear. The air thickened, heavy with the promise of more horrors lurking in the darkness. "Go faster!" I shouted, but the room was filled with ominous laughter, and I felt dread settle in. If this didn't work, if she couldn't find a way out, I couldn't think like that. But then a loud crack echoed behind me, and everything went dark. And in that chilling silence, I realized escape was becoming a distant hope. I stumbled forward, disoriented in the pitch-black darkness. A rush of confusion enveloped me. Where was the creature? Where was my friend? Panic surged through me like a jolt of electricity. I reached out, my hands brushing against the cold metal equipment, searching for something, anything to anchor myself. "Are you okay?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence swallowed my words, and an ache settled in my chest. I wanted to hear her voice, just a whisper would do, but all I got was the temperature drop. Suddenly, I heard a faint shuffling sound to my left. I froze, every muscle tense. Was it my friend or the creature? "If you're there, say something," I urged, my voice barely above a whisper. The shuffling stopped, replaced by a low, guttural sound that sent chills down my spine. I gripped the pipe tighter and shifted cautiously toward the noise. My other senses heightened. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and rapid, and the tick of something mechanical, barely noticeable. "Can't stay here," I thought, taking a small step back. That's when I realized the door wasn't just closed, it was sealed shut. No way to escape that way. My heart took a dive into my stomach. A flicker of light caught my eye.
The phone. My instincts kicked in. I could use it to illuminate a way out. I fumbled in my pockets until I found it. The screen illuminated my shaking hands, and I felt a brief moment of hope. I turned slowly, trying to navigate through the darkness. The light danced over the clutter of machinery, casting eerie shadows that twisted the forms of tools into grotesque shapes. The air thickened, and I could sense the dread lurking beneath every shadow, waiting for the right moment to pounce. "Go faster!" I shouted, but the room was filled with ominous laughter, and I felt dread settle in. If this didn't work, if she couldn't find a way out, I couldn't think like that.
She's smart, I thought, giving myself a fleeting sense of comfort as I moved forward. Just as I made my way toward where I thought the panel might be, the darkness erupted with a thunderous roar, drawing closer. My heart skidded to a stop. I spun back, raising the phone like a shield, the light flickering wildly. It revealed the outline of the creature, now just feet away, a menacing silhouette against the dim glow. There were more shadows, though, deeper into the space, and I realized it wasn't just one creature anymore. "Claire!" I shouted, my voice cracking. Nothing. "I need you!" With only seconds to act, chaos broke out. The weight of the air thickened, and the room felt alive. The whispers returned, louder now, wrapping around me like a chorus of dreadful intentions. I couldn't tell what was real. My mind was racing. I turned the light toward the panel, hoping to find some way to activate it or see how my friend was doing. As I approached, the laughter intensified, bringing back memories of my worst fears, the things I thought lay dormant in the back of my mind. And then, in a flash, I saw something dart across the light, something small and quick. My blood ran cold. "Claire?" I whispered, but it felt like a curse in the air. The laughter faded just long enough for me to realize that my friend wasn't alone. That's when everything went dark again, the shadows swallowing the last flicker of light. The air tightened around me like a vice. I felt a surge of panic rising again. There was no time to think anymore. I had to find my friend. I had to confront whatever was mocking us from the dark corners of this nightmare. And as I felt a presence looming close behind me, I knew the darkness was ready to consume whatever hope I had left. I don't remember how long I stumbled through the dark, disoriented and afraid. My heart raced with every breath, a wild drumbeat that drowned out the laughter echoing through the shadows. I had lost all sense of direction. Every turn felt foreign, every sound more threatening than the last. "Claire!" I called again, voice shaking, desperate for a response. The overwhelming silence was punctuated only by the distant echo of my own words. A chill crawled up my spine, and the weight of the shadows pressed down like a tangible presence. With my phone clutched in my trembling hand, I fought to keep the light steady. I had to get control again. Claire was counting on me. I took a deep breath and focused on the sound of my heartbeat. I had to be brave for both of us, and somehow, amidst the chaos, I found clarity. "There has to be a way out," I murmured, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I turned and stumbled through the shadows, clenching the makeshift weapon tighter, its cold metal a meager source of reassurance against the unknown. I paused, straining to listen. At first, I thought I heard the faintest whisper, but it dissolved into the heavy atmosphere around me. I pressed forward until I stumbled into a wall of cool air. Instinctively, I followed a narrow path, trusting my senses to guide me. And then I saw it, a dim light flickering from the end of a hallway. A spark of hope ignited within me, pushing me onward. I ran towards it, almost forgetting my fear, desperate to find Claire and escape whatever nightmare had grasped us. The light led me into a small room cluttered with more machinery and strange equipment. As I stepped inside, I saw the jagged outline of the panel we had spotted before. I felt a surge of adrenaline. If I could just figure out how to activate it, it could be our way out. "Claire!" I shouted, again, my voice bouncing off the walls. "Are you in here?"
It was then that I saw her. She lay huddled against the wall, her breathing shallow and frantic. Relief flooded me simultaneously with fear. What had happened to her? "Claire!" I rushed to her side, kneeling as I reached out to shake her gently. "Are you okay? We have to go." She opened her eyes, disoriented but alive. I thought I lost you," she gasped. "We need to figure this out," I said, motioning toward the panel. "We can't stay here." As we scrambled to our feet, the oppressive weight of dread returned. Feet shuffled behind us, echoing off the cold concrete walls. I felt the air shift. They were coming. We rushed to the panel, its surface covered in strange markings that felt familiar yet alien. "What do you think this does?" Claire gasped, trembling as she ran her fingers across the symbols. "Whatever it is, it has to lead us out," I said, my eyes darting toward the doorway. The sounds behind us were growing louder, a chorus of echoes, faint whispers promising despair. "Just try something," I urged, eyes locked on the panel as if it held the answer to our escape. Taking a breath, Claire pressed a series of symbols in hurried succession. The moment her fingers touched the last glyph, a low hum resonated through the ground, rattling the room. My heart raced with a mix of hope and fear as the air shimmered. "Is it working?" she asked breathlessly. "I don't know. Keep going." She tapped the panel again and again, desperation fueling her movements. The room vibrated, shadows flickering with every click of the glyphs. I felt it, something stirring in the darkness, something angry. And then, without warning, a blinding light surged from the panel. It engulfed the room, filling it with a searing brightness that pushed back the shadows. But in the aftermath, I heard it, the snarling, guttural growl of the creature rising from the depths of darkness. "Claire!" I yelled as I pulled her away from the panel, fear twisting in my gut. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble, and the walls cracked. "Let's go!" We bolted toward the far end, the sound of destruction echoing sharply in our ears. The light flickered, illuminating a path ahead, urging us to run.
In a cacophony of noise, we dived through an opening just as the ceiling above us began to cave in. We tumbled into an unfamiliar corridor, panting as the space fell into silence. "What just happened?" Claire panted, clutching her side and trying to catch her breath. "I don't know," I admitted, scanning our surroundings. Was this even safe? But the gut-wrenching growl of the creature echoed in my mind. Its presence was still lurking, seemingly manifesting from the shadows. As we climbed to our feet, we exchanged a knowing glance. The fear still lingered, but there was a newfound sense of urgency. We couldn't stop. We had to keep moving until we found a way out of this nightmare. "Look!" I pointed, spotting a narrow stairway leading upward at the end of the corridor. "Let's see where that leads." We raced toward it, heartbeats drowning out the chaos of the past hours. Halfway up, I paused, glancing back. Was it just my imagination, or had I seen a flicker of movement at the entrance behind us? But I didn't want to know. We couldn't stop. After everything we'd been through, we had to focus on the present. Claire had just made it through something unimaginable, and I wouldn't let any darkness take her away. As we finally reached the top of the stairs, we were met by a heavy door, marked with scratches, proof of previous attempts to escape. I felt a moment of hesitation, but resolve pushed me forward. Together, we pushed through, the door creaking open and revealing the first hint of fresh air. The night sky greeted us, and the cool breeze was like an answer to our prayers. We stumbled into an alley, free of the immediate threat. Gulping the night air into our lungs, we glanced back, half expecting the horrors to follow. But nothing came. The darkness behind us loomed ominous and far, as if we had emerged from an abyss. "We made it," Claire breathed, looking at me with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Yeah, but," I hesitated, glancing back one last time. What just happened? What was all of that?
I don't know, she admitted softly, fear creeping back into her voice. But let's not linger. We walked quickly through the alley, glancing over our shoulders. But the night felt different now, eerily quiet, as though the city itself had transformed into a different world. Still, questions swirled through my mind. What connection did the Uber drivers have? What had we activated in that dark room? The things lingering in the shadows, were they gone, or simply waiting for the next opening? I moved on silent alongside Claire. Though we had escaped the immediate danger, I couldn't shake the questions thrumming beneath the surface, an unease that tightened around my chest. As we turned the corner, the incessant hum of the city pulsed like a heartbeat. Somewhere in the shadows, I felt the weight of something watching, waiting. I glanced at an Uber passing by, the glow from its headlights harsh and bright. Would I ever feel safe getting into one again?
I took a deep breath, trying to push away the dread curling deep within me. "Let's just keep moving," I said, turning my back on the night that had enveloped us. For now we were free, but I knew the memories would linger, like shadows that fall just out of sight, haunting the edges of my reality. The fear was far from over. It was just waiting to be unleashed again.